Hi, it's Glenn Stencil again, part of a continuing video presentation on stopping movie piracy. This particular segment referred to as negotiation or business transactions. It, it's unfortunate we have to go to this kind of point, but if you hang in there a little bit, you'll understand why. This will probably explain why the movie studios, the industry, can't seem to get a solution to movie piracy. Okay, so appreciate if you hang in and just hear how this unfolds. For most transactions of a business nature or whatever, there's usually one party who needs or wants something from another party, and the other party just wants to ensure that they will get compensated for it. Okay, and as long as that works out, both parties should be happy. Now, in most business transactions, however, to complete the process between the two, there's usually about four stages. And we usually overlook that because we think it's so simple, but it's really about four stages to it. There's a negotiation stage, there's an inspection stage, there's a transfer of ownership stage, and if we don't use it or not, we do like to have the assurance of a dispute resolution stage, if possible. If hopefully never should never get that way, but a lot of things go wrong, and most people like to at least know there's something for disputes. It makes the business transaction much more palatable, much more above board, much more sincere. Gives both parties a means to know that they're proceeding in a business-like fashion, to know even if things go wrong. And so that dispute resolution stage, even if it's not used, the assurance of something there is important. Okay, we'll get to why that's there, and that, at first you're going to see that means nothing, but it is important to getting a solution to movie piracy. So anyway, for most people, when you to buy or sell something, we most think of consumable objects, a computer, a table, clothing of some kind. And in which case, you go to the store, you're kind of mixing the negotiation with the inspection at the same kind of time. You check the label, you inspect the product, you may look at the display one, what's the quality of it, what's the sticker price on it. Usually in North America, we don't usually negotiate the price so much, but it's kind of in along with valuing and inspecting the product. Okay, and then of course the transfer of ownership stage. You take it to the cash register and you kind of say, okay, it's swiped through, money is exchanged. When the money is exchanged, the ownership of to the product also goes. You can leave the store with it. That's how we jump to a conclusion and assume that's how everything is done. However, with many other products and services, consulting arrangements, various other intellectual property, many other goods and services can't be acquired under the same process. So that very process we initially jumped to a conclusion, assuming that's how it's done, doesn't apply in other areas. Okay? For most consultants, of course, they usually have terms of reference, a written contract. What's one going to supply? What's the other one going to pay? When is it get paid? There's something there to make sure both people are still happy. When it comes to, say, a movie ticket, just throwing it out there, we're talking about movie piracy. Let's talk about a movie ticket. Can you imagine if you just went to a movie theater and you went to the box office and saying, no, this doesn't work here. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go watch the movie. When I finish watching it, I'll come out and then we'll negotiate what the price is and whether I even think it's worth it. And maybe I've already seen it before. I thought of it, I read the book. I don't know. I mean, the movie industry could not survive if it operated under that process. It has to operate under a different process because you can't take back that service. Once somebody has watched the movie, you can't take it back out of their head. Okay? And we know that. That's why the industry, it is an accepted means of business transaction to say, in this case, you got to pay for it first. I mean, people would be running out the theaters and nobody would be paying. Your ability to collect, we don't even know if they'd have the money in their pocket to pay. So given the nature of that particular transactions, it's now appropriate to say, pay or essentially leaving a deposit. If there's a dispute resolution, the theater isn't going anywhere. So a customer can still complain and somehow resolve things. And if things really go bad, there still is, of course, the court issue. And everyone's got their documentation. I have my ticket receipt. The theater is still there. We know where it happened. There's dispute resolution processes available. And yet we have transactions. That's the business world focuses is geared to allow regular transactions depending on the nature of the circumstances. You want to take an airline flight. You just don't get on the plane, fly to everywhere, wherever you want, pick up your bags, and then go to them and say, well, now let's haggle out the price and talk about things. Okay? It just isn't done. In fact, they'll say, well, you know, it's a shitty flight. I didn't like the food. We're going to start haggling about the price. The industry, the airline industry couldn't survive that way. Okay? Same with hotels, motels. What's the first thing you get there? You're not paying, but they want a deposit. They want something run through your credit card. They want to ensure they're going to get paid. They want to know who you are. They want their dispute resolution process. So the customer's got to give something to say there's a dispute resolution process, and you know we got some funds here held on the side, you know, to assuming things go wrong, we can still hash it later, and that's what makes that industry work. Okay, lawyers particularly. The legal profession, so many of them, the means of getting a lawyer can change depending on the situation at hand. Maybe some lawyers will work on a portion of the fees received, especially in the United States. You got class action lawsuits, and lawyers will say, "Well, I'll take a portion of the, you know, not necessarily the winnings, but their clients' awards." Okay, it's not quite like winning a lottery, but they'll pay the fees until they get their portion of the client's final award. So they take a leap of faith in that, or they work on a retainer, or they work by the hour, and they need a retainer because the lawyer wants to ensure they get paid too. Okay, so I mean, all these issues about negotiation, inspection, transfers ownership, and dispute resolution, they all do affect almost all transactions, but they don't always work the same in the same exact order given the nature of what is being transacted. So here you have it. Solution to movie piracy. Unfortunately, most of the people I've talked to immediately jump to the conclusion, tell them everything there is about it, which is like going to a theater and then after they watch the movie, then we'll talk about things. It just doesn't work given the nature of that transaction. Okay? They're not willing to give any assurance on a dispute resolution. They're not willing to give any assurance of any negotiation. What is the price? They just want it, and of course, they want the ability to say, well, we're just taking it. I mean, maybe they won't take it, but they definitely want the ability to take it. And that doesn't make sense given the situation. When for example, my experience with movie labs, just tell them everything there is. And then they, on their own, unfettered discretion, will decide what, if anything, they may or will not help. And of course, they always have their little caveat, and you know what? Chances are we've already been thinking of it anyway. So they give nothing to try and negotiate, to even open up, to try and attract intellectual property from outside sources, because they give nothing. There's no dispute resolution process. There's no negotiation process. They want to inspect everything first, consume it, because then, and basically, in many ways, take ownership of it. And you'll see that in the solution to movie piracy, there's portions that could be patented but shouldn't be for the industry's best needs. In any case, there's a lot going wrong with there. And as much as I try to tell some people that it's not working out, it's actually stupid the way they're trying to do it, they are just adamant that's the way things are done. And it'll start to seem clear that that's also why in 7 years movie labs can't get a solution to movie piracy. That's not the way things are done if you want a solution. That may be the way you're doing things, but if you want it to transact business in good faith, you got to be a little more open-minded to this. And if you're not open-minded to understanding the differences on negotiation on both parties' needs and wants, and ensuring a plausible means of an equitable transaction, how can you possibly get a solution to movie piracy? That is the problem with movie piracy. People are taking it without negotiating, without payment, without any assurance. But that is the essence of what movie piracy is. There's no negotiation. There's no assurance of payment. It's just gone. So somehow, like Movie Labs wants to have the same ability. It doesn't make a lot of sense that Movie Labs is entrusted to find a way to protect intellectual property for their clients, being the movie industry, and yet they have no concern that someone else would have intellectual property to help them, and they'd want to be this. They have the same problem. Maybe if they could understand how this works out, they'd get a little further. Just throwing that out there. This is why, in many ways, I'm saying I need to talk to the movie studio executives, because in many ways, also, when you're doing transaction, you need to transact things with those who have the ability to negotiate. And unfortunately, from what you can see of movie labs, they don't have the ability to negotiate. They have the ability to take your product and inspect it and give it out to everyone else, but they're really not in a position to negotiate, because they, again, expect that exchange process to go backwards. They're expecting, we'll take it, we'll have everyone else look at it, then maybe, if they think they still need you afterwards, then they'll kind of talk to you about it. But if they don't need you, so much for good faith bargaining. I mean, that's a problem. Anyway, that's your thought. I appreciate if you listen to that. It may give you a little bit of a idea of why it's not just me. I'm sure probably there are others. Possibly, I don't know, there couldn't be that many, but possibly there are others. But if they've all met with the same kind of attitude on how negotiation is done, no wonder they're not getting a solution. They actually prevent a solution by their unwillingness to consider new ideas and new approaches that are more appropriate given the circumstances. Anyway, thanks again, and have a good day.